Why, good morning, Von Peebles. How's anybody doing today? It is very early. It is 7 in the morning here. I have a nice hot cup of Earl Grey, and it's been a minute since I've done a book through, which is a thing I don't even know if it's legal for me to do on YouTube. This might be the last time anybody sees me. If it turns out I'm not allowed to do this, and I get carted away by the internet police, I don't know. But basically, what I'm going to do is just go through this book. This is a tabletop role-playing book, obviously. This is a game I had the opportunity to play in recently, within the past year or so. A good friend of mine ran this for us. She did a spectacular job, and we all had a lot of fun. She's still a new GM, but her energy is very infectious when she runs her games, and she put in the work. I think she came at us with something like 140-page PowerPoints that she had that was like the engine that she ran the game on. So she had visuals for everything. She had sound effects sometimes. She really did put in a lot of work. It was a lot of fun, and she's looking forward to running games for us in the future, which I think would be fantastic. But the reason I know that she's going to go on to continue to skill up as a GM and to continue to give us amazing games in the future is because she, and we, all as players at the table, consistently solicited feedback from us about the game, about how she was running. And we all had thoughts about this game. We had some good discussions about it. I may have wagged my finger once or twice. That may have happened. The Darkest House is a game by Monty Cook, who is a venerable name in the TTRPG space. Either the lead designer or one of like 3 or 4 lead designers on Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition, which in turn means the D20 system, which was the gaming license that so many indie games used back in the aughts. Monty Cook was also a major contributor to my favorite Dungeons & Dragons property in history, which is the Planescape line of 2nd edition books. So getting a book like written by Monty Cook is very, very cool. I know he has other RPGs that I haven't played, but this is one that I was looking forward to. Like when she first pitched us, like, we're going to play this game called The Darkest House, I thought she was talking about a game called Household, which is a much purpler book. It's not a black book, it's a purple book. That's the main difference. She pitched the game to me, and I thought, okay, it sounds kind of cool. And then when I went home and I looked up and I saw it was written by Monty Cook, I'm like, oh, great, I'm in for a ride. It's going to be fun. The actual premise of the game is it's a tabletop role-playing game, but it's not like a campaign based game, like a Dungeons and Dragons, Star Wars, World of Darkness kind of thing. It's not based on like narrative chapters. Instead, it's kind of like a big escape room. You get trapped in the darkest house, and then the exploration and combat elements are there to facilitate you investigating the mystery of what's going on in this house and how to get out of it. I couldn't even tell you how long it took us. Our Meat Space group, which is where we ran this, has about a 50% hit rate when it comes to actually getting a game together once a week. And we go through stretches where we can't game at all. So I think we probably got through this in, 10 or 12 full sessions maybe through the whole book. That's probably a good ballpark. We usually do like 3-4 hour sessions once a week when we can keep it together. But it was a good-sized game, but it's not a game that like you can have on your shelf that you're going to play for like years and years and years. You're going to run the Darkest House once, or you're going to play in it once, and then you will have used it up. It's like a D&D adventure path. Like once you've been through Curse of Strahd or Storm King's Thunder, like you don't want to play that adventure path again. You could use this same game concept to play again, but you would need a different house. A darkerest house, perhaps. So yeah, let's just get into it. Just open up the book here. Some of these pages came loose when the first time I was flipping through it. So I have destroyed my friend's book already. And I know the lighting in my office is not terrific. You can just blame me for that. That's fine. But also maybe it's good that I'm just showing the book in like shiny blurro vision because I don't want to get a copyright strike on my YouTube channel for showing all the pages of a book. And I'm actually not going to read quite a lot of the book because I know a lot of it is just a description of what's in the house and how it fits together, like maps and stuff like that. And that interests me less than the mechanics and the design philosophy, which, as I said, I lived through as a player. We're also going to see her notes all over the place. She's got post-it notes here everywhere. Here's this guy. He's freaky looking. So, the house system here. The way it was pitched to me is that this book was published, it had to have been published in 2020, right? Is that what she told me? Let me go back to the front here. Do I have a publication date on one of these early pages? No, I just got a page that says The Darkest House. All right. Well, the way she described it is that like this book was published in 2020 when everybody was in lockdown. Like all the gaming groups fell apart. Nobody could get together. I tried to run Storm King's Thunder over the internet. We weren't able to keep it together. So you had like a bunch of role players out there from all different systems wandering around the internet. They couldn't leave their house. How do we get games together? So the book was published like, take any 5 players from any game system. It doesn't matter what game system they're using. You can put them in the Darkest House, and the system will facilitate the changes of it. So theoretically, you should be able to bring characters from any role-playing system, any set of mechanics, into the Darkest House. That's how it was pitched. Was it successful at doing that? In our case, yeah, we'll see. Yeah, here we go. Converting player characters. So this is the main game mechanic. Everything has a rating. Everything in the world has a rating from 1 to 10. I love her little post-its. These are going to be, I don't know how many of these are in the book. But the idea is like your rating is like your power level. It's your difficulty class. The game is a D6-based system. You roll some number of D6s based on what your rating is. So a basic rating might be 3. And then you can increase your rating of 3 if you have a particular skill. Like, just for being a human, my rating is just 3, baseline. And because I can read and because I like books, like, maybe if I'm going through a library and I'm trying to find a specific piece of information, they would say, okay, like, you have like a lore finder skill that's rating 7. And then that ups my chance of getting a success on that roll. And then all of the rolls are based on D6s. You roll a pool of D6s. This is all going to be in the book. I don't know why I'm describing it now. We're going to get to those rules. But the idea is that we're going to take player characters from some other system and convert them into the Darkest House characters. You can and should use PCs from all your favorite RPG systems in the Darkest House. Notice that I didn't say any, I said all. What games does he mention by name here? Call of Cthulhu, Cypher System, Pathfinder, Numenera, which is his game. He wrote that. Fate, Vampire. So the claim is we can convert characters from any system. So here's the conversion chart. Okay, this is kind of the meat and potatoes of this conversion system. House system goes from 1 to 10. That's like the power level in DCs. It's saying in a D20 system, a power level of 3 or a rank of 3 would be a 5 or a 6 roll on a D20. That's almost always a failure. And I'm pretty sure that 3 was the baseline for humans. So already I'm seeing a discrepancy. Like the baseline for on a D20 is a 10, clearly, so it should correlate with a 5. So what is the baseline? Sounds like it should be 5. I don't know. But then it has similar columns if you have like a D4 based system, a D6 based system, and a D100 based system. This all seems well and good. All of this requires a hefty dose of attention and logic. Because evaluating Call of Cthulhu characters by comparing them to all characters in that game and evaluating all 5e characters by comparing them to all characters in that game are two very different processes. Yeah, that's true. The toughest Call of Cthulhu character is likely not the equivalent of even a moderately tough 5e character. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So, here's our rule of thumbs. The character is basically a real-world human or very close. Their maximum rating is 4. So in a D20 system like D&D 5e, we're saying that's a roll of 7 to 8. That's below average. Is basically a superhero, or the equivalent. Their minimum rating is 5. So I think D&D characters are superheroes. If the character is a heroic fantasy character, an enhanced science fiction character, or has any sort of parent... So these are D&D characters, he's saying. The rating can be anywhere from 1 to 10. No matter what system you're using, if you're not sure which number to use between two different numbers, use the lower one. When in doubt, round down, not up. Like, the system is definitely designed to get you in the ballpark of something playable for the Darkest House. A sword is a sword, a laser pistol is a laser pistol, so characters have their equipment and stuff. So, what about a character's spells, magic items, and special abilities? Any ability that makes a task easier is a boon. So basically, what we did is we didn't have pre-built characters for this, obviously. We're not coming from all different games. We are a steady gaming group that's pretty much the same people all the time when we can keep it together. We can't always, as I said, but when we do, it's the same people all the time, and we're always playing the same game. Like, we're not all bringing characters in. So what she said is, I'm going to run the game with Dungeons & Dragons characters. So we rolled up, I think, a level 5 D&D character. Maybe only level 3. I forget now. Level 5 D&D characters. So we spent the first session of this rolling up D&D characters, knowing we were going to put them into the Darkest House. Then she took these character sheets, looked them over, and then she gave each of us a customized printout of our like class abilities, spells, features, and stuff, translated into Darkest House stuff. And during character creation, I'm going to just admit that I saw a gap to break the system immediately. Because when you make rolls in the Darkest House, bad things can happen. So my thought was, I want to make as few rolls as possible. I'm going to take a wizard character who can cast Magic Missile. Magic Missile is a spell in Dungeons & Dragons that does not require an attack roll. It's like the feature of the spell. So when I got my character spell sheet for the Darkest House, sure enough, I had like 3 or 4 uses of Magic Missile, and it showed how much damage it does in terms of Darkest House, and it didn't require an attack roll to hit. So basically, it was just a free laser spell against all of the monsters in the Darkest House. I never once felt bad about exploiting that. Okay, but we do have some guidelines here on converting characters, languages, PC ratings, and things. When the PCs do anything significant, this is the main gameplay loop. The action is resolved with a roll. To resolve an action, the player rolls 2 6-sided dice, adds the dice together, then adds their character's rating. Yeah, so you roll 2d6, add your character rating, which remember, baseline human is 4. So we're looking at a maximum of 12 plus 4 is 98. In order to succeed, they need to beat the given target number, which is always 7 plus the rating of the task. So everything in the Darkest House has a rating. So a baseline rating would be either 3 or 4. Like, say I need to break a doorknob or something. Should be easy enough. I've got a hammer. Great. So the DC to break that doorknob is 7 plus the rating, which is 3. So I have to beat a 10 on 2d6 plus my rating, which we'll say it's a 5 because I've got a 4 for being a baseline human, plus 1 because I've got this hammer. Boom. So it's 2d6 plus my 5, and I've got to beat that 10. That worked pretty well, actually. That's actually the main gameplay system, and the rolls went quick and easy most of the time. I think I kept getting confused because you're rolling on multiple... You need to roll more than 2d6 because you need to roll a house die. We'll get to the house die here once we find the page with it. But it's I guess you're right here. The player might have a chance if they called upon the house for help and used a house die. So sometimes you're using this house die, and I kept getting into my head that it was a dice pool of d6s, not just add the 2d6 together plus your rating. I think she had to correct me on that multiple times. In fact, I think I played an entire session doing it the wrong way and just failing every roll until I got to the end, and she's like, "Are you doing that right?" And I'm like, no, sorry. I'm a college dropout. What do you want from me? So, okay, the player always rolls. I didn't have a good sense of how well this worked, but basically the idea is the player is always the one making the roll. If an enemy attacks the player, instead of the enemy having to roll an attack against the player has to roll to defend against the attack. Conceptually, I don't like this because it kind of leaves the DM with no dice to play with, and as like a forever DM, I like playing with my dice. I'd rather play with my dice than not. Dice rolling hacks, what do we got here? Partial successes, the house die. But wait, the house watches everything that happens within it. You're in the darkest house. You're in this haunted, evil, horrible house. And every time the player rolls the dice for an action, but not damage, they also roll an additional special die. Ooh, do I have mine? Hold on. Ugh. It's back here in the tunnel. Yeah, I've got... She actually... I told you, she went all out for this game. Here's my dice. If you've never seen... At the flump table, I have my dice. I don't want to spill them all out, but it's in here somewhere. It's the special D6. Yeah, I'm just going to pour them out. Let's just get it out of here. There it is. Okay, we'll set that aside. I'll pack these back up. I don't want to lose any. This is a fraction of my dice. I have my main bag, right? And then I have my backup dice bag, right? And then I have my big dice bag that has, like, all of my, like, dice that I might use. And then I have a separate dice bag for my dice that are shaped like potions. And then I've got a separate bag for my World of Darkness D10s. And then I've got a separate bag for my metal dice that I never use. I don't like rolling metal dice. And then we have the tub. The tub is a giant Tupperware container filled with dice. Like this thing, if you dropped it on someone's head, it would kill them. This is the house die. She gave all of us one of these, and she said we could keep them. So it's just a standard D6, 1 to 6, but it has this wonderful demon face on it. So if you roll the house die and this mofo comes up, bad things happen. Okay. So the idea is on a standard roll, I would roll 2d6 plus this. Like the actual number on this die usually doesn't matter. But like I would say, okay, I rolled a 13, I succeeded on the task, but the house die is relevant. And every time we said the house die is relevant, she got these little evil gremlin eyes, and she rubbed her hands together, but she didn't tell us what it meant. It's definitely not good, is what the book says. So yeah, usually the house die has no effect on whether or not the character succeeds, only determines if the house acts. But if you're desperate, you can call upon the house for aid. When you do that, you do roll the house die along with your other 2d6. You add your rating, then you add this house die all together. So you have a greater chance of success, but the house acts. It's bad. One of the reasons I want to do a book through, I want to figure out what this means. I want to figure out what Cook meant by it's bad. Or the character can gain a doom. All right, let me collect my thoughts for a second here. Because this part of the game didn't work for me personally. In general, I don't like the idea of DMs having to collect like some resource that they then use to fuel encounters, right? So like, what's the book that I just read? The Phantasy Star tabletop game, and in that game it's called Bane Dice. And then in, like, Daggerheart, it is Fear. This concept has been around forever. But the idea is, like, the GM will amass some currency that they then have to spend in order to make encounters happen in the book. It's generally not a mechanic that I love a lot. No, I think that kind of thing kind of stifles creativity, and I think it gets stale after a while. Because the first few sessions, like I said, will be like, oh, the house die is relevant, and she would go, "Mwahahaha," and we're like, oh, we're going to get it now. And the spell worked for a few sessions, but after a while, like, after 3-4 sessions in, we started to, like, get a sense of what the house could do to us. And so it stopped being scary. It stopped being, and it just started being like, whatever, we'll shrug it off. Like, Brick's over there, he'll just fire his free magic missiles that he gets at whatever spawns in. But this other mechanic, gaining a Doom. Doom is a mechanic, for one thing, it's the game's death mechanic. If you lose all your health, and then something happens with your Doom, you can actually die. Amassing Doom was bad. I was never super clear on why it was bad, other than it could kill you in the end. But the reason it didn't work for me as a player is because when she described these mechanics, I immediately thought, okay, Doom equals bad. Get as little Doom as possible. I think I came out of the house with the least amount of Doom, not in the least because I specifically took a main attack that doesn't require a roll. Which to me was the correct way to play. We're in a dangerous place. We're trying to solve this mystery. We should not accept help from this house. The house is bad. It's our enemy. It says right here, it's bad. But, I wanted to amass as little Doom as possible. Across the room from me, I had another player. He's like, whatever. I eat Doom for breakfast. Put it on my Wheaties, rub it on my nipples. I'll take all the Doom all day long. And the rational part of my brain was like, that's fine. Different players are going to approach it differently. He's not, ruining anybody's fun. He's doing it his way. I can appreciate that. No problem. No harm, no foul. The irrational part of my brain wanted to throttle him. Like, what are you doing? I went through all this trouble to make a character to get as little Doom as possible, and you're going to get her killed. He didn't, by the way. Nobody died. The Darkest House did not claim any of us. We have Boons and Banes, which are kind of like advantage, disadvantage. Let me make sure that my little house die just kind of stays on screen there. Boons and Banes, so you can alter rolls with advantage and disadvantage. Okay, when the character gains a Doom, the GM should make a clear and obvious note of it. Oh, she did that. She had a spreadsheet in her little book, I'm sure. The players should show their ongoing Doom tally. I did that. I kept track of that on my character sheet. I don't know if everybody did. The feeling of increasing danger as Doom tallies should become palpable during the game. I don't understand how that's supposed to work. When a wounded character falls unconscious and then checks to see if they die, they must subtract their Doom total from the roll. So the more Doom that you have, the greater the chance that that roll will fail and you'll die. And finally, characters leaving the house with Dooms are not in the clear. Oh, I didn't know that, actually. So the players can lower their total by 1, spending a Doom. In this situation, they give the GM permission to do something terrible. I mean, the part of me is like, you're running the Darkest House. You don't need permission to do something terrible. So a horrific vision that causes a wound, an attack by a ghost. The only guidelines are it must be significant, bad for the character, and the GM can inflict this upon the character or the characters whenever they wish. So this is what I mean. In the opening sessions of the game, this works fine. It works as Cook probably intended. We were scared of amassing Doom. We wanted to avoid taking it. When our house die came up with the little gremlin face, we were like, but after a while, it's like, there's not really that much Doom can do to you. And we learned that playing the game. Like, leaving the house with Doom, there's this great table of what happens if you leave the house and you still have Doom, but when you leave the house, the game is over. Like, I guess, unless they intend you to take the character back into Waterdeep or whatever, or back into Call of Cthulhu, and then you're going to apply these effects to your Call of Cthulhu game? I don't know. My point is, it just became a game mechanic. It just became like a point system that we didn't really play with or around or about. It just kind of faded into the background, and there wasn't really a threat there. And that's kind of what happens with a lot of these GM currency systems. That's enough about Doom. Nobody died in our game. Nobody died. I don't think people really even came that close. Okay, so we've got an example of a character conversion. Ooh, what example is he given here? A cipher system. Is that Cook's Numenera system? I mean, it would have to be his own system. Like, he can't publish a D&D character sheet in this book. So, okay, the character conversion system, I think it's a great idea. I don't think it worked in practice. And for us, we had the advantage of all characters coming from the same game and the same power level. But I'm trying to imagine, like, okay, a DM's going to have to balance a level 5 D&D wizard against a Jedi Knight from Star Wars, against an investigator from Call of Cthulhu, against a pony princess from Equestria. And, like, I would love to see that live play table. I would love to see it. In practice, I don't think it would work. I think what they should have done instead is just have a standard character creation system. Keep it really simple. Keep it localized down to just a couple of boons and a couple of like skills, like it shows here. But kind of give examples, like if your character is a fantasy hero that can use magic, use this archetype. If your character is a paranormal investigator, right? Like, think of what are the 5 or 6 most popular kinds of tabletop role-playing games. Account for D&D, account for Call of Cthulhu, account for World of Darkness, account for, like, superheroes, sci-fi, right? There's so much overlap there. Like, a Jedi blaster and a D&D wizard are the same thing in this game. You both get, like, weird laser attacks. And there should also be a note somewhere saying, like, all of a character's actions should probably be a roll, even if it's coming from a game where it says you don't have to roll. That would solve the magic missile problem that we had. So, okay. There are 2 ways to get hurt. You do have 2 kinds of health in this game. There was your physical health, and then there was mental health. This all made sense to me. This was fine. And either one of those, if they went down to 0, would knock you unconscious. Very standard, and... honestly, I like systems that track 2 different health pools like that, because your character can be very strong one way and very weak another way. Or you can be very unharmed physically, but still have all these psychic wounds from the ghost that was laughing at you. And we did take a lot of damage over the game. We got physical damage. Okay, so yeah, falling, intense cold, weapons and damage. Hacking damage? What are we talking about here? Okay, it's not like a hacking type of damage, like I'm hacking somebody with an axe. It's giving you kind of notes for like how to arrive at the correct rating for a certain damage type. It seems like we've gone several pages now trying to explain this concept of like how to arrive at ratings from different systems and how to balance them against each other. And I'm really, really interested. I would be interested to know how much actual playtesting and work went into balancing characters from different systems against each other. Because the book did say any system. So different kinds of mental damage. So like experiencing something creepy versus something terrifying versus seeing someone's death to experiencing something utterly impossible. But even this, like we're giving a mental rating of 7 to experience something utterly impossible. That means a DC of 14 on 2d6. That's hard. That's hard to do. But most of the characters in the Darkest House are going to experience impossible things routinely. I literally played a wizard. My job was to do the magic. I could fly, I could turn invisible, I could like talk to my familiar gremlin that I summoned, I shot lasers out of my hands. Like, how are we defining impossible here? And I know somewhere out there's a group of Darkest House players where like one guy was playing like a modern D20 character, like a cop on the beat, and then another guy was playing like a barbarian from Faerun who had like could rage up and had magic runes and stuff. And I'm sure that went down like, what does impossible mean? Why don't I get a bonus when I see impossible things all the time? So okay, we're talking about damage. NPCs also take damage. Healing, yeah, when we rested, roll for each wound they currently bear. So yeah, you had your rating, roll against your wound rating, and if you pass the check, you could reduce some wounds. We also met a dog partway through the adventure, and when the DM showed us when we met this dog, she put like a photograph of her own dog on the screen. who is trapped in the darkest house, which is exactly what I would have done. Although my dogs are much more adorable than hers. Anyway. And yeah, she said, like, if you play with the dog for 10 minutes, it reduces your mental wounds by 1. I thought that was cute. I don't know if that's in the book. I don't know if that's published and she adapted it, or if that's just something she came up with. I guess we'll find out. When you encounter a situation that is obviously unfair to a PC because of the conversion, you should change things right there on the spot to correct the problem. This is a wonderful sentiment, and it's good that it's published in white ink in the book. But this is an indication that the system is very hacky and is very unstable and is going to create balance problems. Even for us, we all rolled up D&D characters. I think we rolled up level 5 D&D characters. Yeah, it must have been level 5 because my wizard had Fireball. I could Fireball if I wanted to. But yeah, even within our group, we saw kind of disparities. And just printing on the page, hey, if you run into a problem, just fix it. What does it actually say to do? It isn't the intention to take away from the fun or hurt a character concept. There are many game systems out there. Unexpected things can happen when converting from one to another. The GM will have to handle this on a case-by-case basis. But remember, the house system might make your character more fragile than normal, more susceptible to harm from mental attacks, and this is intentional. So, this is a wonderful sentiment, but I'm not seeing a lot of good guidance on, like, imagine you're a brand new GM. Imagine you're very inexperienced. Imagine Darkest House is your first game. Like, what would this paragraph even mean to you? I would have great difficulty, I think, on the fly, trying to balance characters just from different editions of Dungeons and Dragons. And I've been running Dungeons and Dragons for 30 years, you guys. I think if a group of adventurers sat down at my table and one had like a 2nd edition, and one had a 3rd edition, and one had a 4th edition, and one showed up with a Pathfinder character, like, I think I might be able to wing it, but it would not be easy. Of course, Dungeons & Dragons is a much more complex system. In this game, everything boils down to 2d6 plus a rating. So, yeah, I wonder how many people struggled with this. I wonder how many table discussions were had about this. Because just admitting that there is a problem, but is much different from actually giving guidance on how to solve the problem. It says you should change things right there on the spot to correct the problem. It doesn't say what you should do or what direction you should go. It doesn't say, like, give them a bonus. It doesn't say, like, give them a new skill. It doesn't say, like, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I wonder how many people had problems with that. So, okay, summarizing attack. Wait a minute. We had attacks and damage. Yeah. We had damage, pain and wounds, damage, healing, and then this note about what happens if PCs are unbalanced, and then we go back to damage. Okay. It's just kind of stuck in there. We get an example of attacking in play. This is all fine. Well and good. Every character coming into the Darkest House brings a truth or a lie with them. Okay. What's the key to success? How important are my friends? What's my ultimate goal? What's my most important principle or value? I'm pretty sure we actually did that little questionnaire. Oh, I don't have my character sheet for this handy. I bet she still does. If I would have thought about it, I would have made sure to have it. I need to turn my fan on in here. It is... We have, like, false autumns. I live in Central Florida, and it's mid-October now, and around mid-October we'll have a few days where, it's starting to get a little bit cooler outside. Nope. There was a fake out. It's not getting cooler at all. A truth is something the character believes is true, and so does the player. A lie is something the character believes is true, but the player does not. I love that wording. If my character had a truth or a lie, I don't remember what it was, and I don't remember it coming into play. There was a major element of our characters' backstories being incorporated into the house, like the house would create areas to kind of mess with our heads. It definitely did that a few times. Which, again, is something I would expect for a game like this, but that went off pretty well. Maybe we'll get to that coming across here. character arcs in the house. No one is coming back out as ever truly the same. So, for our group was a level 5 group of D&D adventurers. And my approach was like, this is just an evil house. Like, this is... Like, by the time you get to a level 5 D&D adventurer, like, you should be able to handle an evil house. That's kind of like how I approached it in character. Like, it's just another adventure. In fact, we were hired to go in and clear out the house. No, we weren't. We were hired to go in and rescue a boy that had gone missing, who had ran inside. We figured out that he had ran inside the house, and we got handled up inside the house. I'm trying to think of what I learned. I don't have an answer to that. The house hates you. She must have said this line 40,000 times over the game. And I do believe it. The house is very hateful. Definitely the truth. But again, we did reach a point where we weren't that scared of the threats in the house anymore. The nature of the house, there's intrusions into reality. By the way, I'm not going to spoil any of these solutions as I come across them. I might mention some of the things we did in the house in passing, but I'm not going to spoil the solutions of any puzzles. So there's the story of the house. Okay. I actually read all this through the other day. This is her copy of the book. She let me borrow this so I could make this video, and that's why her Post-its are all over it. Okay, so this page. This is a page that... So what this page is saying is that, okay, he's given us the story of the house and that there are mysteries. And then this page outlines some of the questions that people might have. And then Cook says, I'll go to my grave insisting that they're more fun because we don't know the definitive answers. Nope. Not even a little bit. No, because the way the house is presented as a player sitting in the room... Because remember, I compared this to like an escape room situation. Fiddling with a mystery or a puzzle or something intriguing, something that like taps into your brain, and playing around with it and mulling it over and internalizing it, and then the answer turns out to be there's not a great answer. I didn't think that was a great feeling, Mr. Cook. Trying to think of how I want to phrase it. So, okay, a game I'm running right now is called Obojima. It's a D&D 5e supplement setting, and it's very cartoony, and it's based in this like whimsical magic world, and it's filled with mystery and intrigue. There's lots of open questions. And going through it at the end of that book, there's a chapter for the DM that's like, okay, here's the answers to the questions. This is why the mysteries are the way they are. This is why the world reacts the way it does. This is what's actually going on. And then as a DM, when I'm presenting the game world, I don't have to present those solutions to my players. I don't have to come out and say, this is what's happening. But the fact that I have that in my mind helps me to make decisions on how I'm going to present the mystery. And that's not possible if there are no answers. This is a concept called the mystery box, and I've seen this leveled against the writers of Lost. If you've seen the TV show Lost, the idea is you, as a writer, you show a mystery box to your audience. You don't tell them what's inside of it. You just tell them that opening the box is important, and that's it. Then you walk away. It's somebody else's problem. Well, the real problem is, and using, it's 2025. I don't know how many people are going to be familiar with the show Lost, but I'm sure you've seen some kind of TV show or anime or media like this where there was a very intriguing mystery, and then in season 2 or 3, we see the answer to that mystery, and then the answer to the mystery has repercussions on the previous chapters of the story, because that's where we were shown the box. But none of those repercussions were baked into the story, because at the time they showed us the box, they didn't know what was in it. Does that make sense? Am I making any sense? The idea is, like, as a writer, you should know the answer to all reasonable questions in your universe, because knowing those answers can help you frame the mystery in a way that will be more satisfying to the viewer, or in this case, to the player at the end, Mr. Cook. I know that as a player, I was a little bummed when we reached a point in the game where as a player, I realized, oh, there's not going to be a nice, cohesive wrap up for the mystery. Like, a lot of the stuff we're coming across is just there to be mysterious. That did take some of the wind out of my sails. Again, not my DM's fault. She did a spectacular job presenting the material. It's just the material says straight up something that I don't agree with. These are fun questions. Yeah, Cook, and fun questions deserve answers. Reasons to enter the house. So our reason for entering the house was there was a lost boy, and we found that he was in the house. So originally, we got paid like bags of gold, too. We went into the house. Oh, here it is. Get Buddy out of the house. Oh, in this case, Buddy's a dog. Fine. Well, it wasn't a dog for us. It was a little elf boy. And I think we rescued the little elf boy, and then we found a way to escape the house, but the house was, like, still there in our little, like, quaint fishing village or whatever. So being good D&D adventurers, I think we went back into the house just to clear it up. So, like, our in-universe reason was to go back into the house to sew it up so it would vanish from the world and not be a threat to anybody else who might wander into it. Out of universe, obviously, our incentive was just we haven't played the whole game yet. We wanted to go back and play the rest of the game. Okay, so this is kind of giving us plot hooks. The house hates you. Rumors about the house. Okay, so there's false and true rumors. Sure. Well, wait a minute. How do we know these rumors are false? If we never get an answer to the mystery, how do we know the rumors are false? Conditions within the house. There are anachronisms. Yeah, we were finding, like, technology and stuff. We had some fun with, like, our D&D characters fresh out of Waterdeep got to interact with, like, a VCR and a telephone and, like, an old radio at some point. There's magic inside. That might be interesting if you're coming from a setting with no magic, if you're coming from some kind of real-world setting. Or if you're coming from a magical set, like if you're coming from Star Wars, which doesn't have magic per se, but has the Force, and then this magic is a much different sort of magic. That could be interesting. Time gets strange inside. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty standard. PC abilities are affected with the house. This one came back to bite me in a way that I knew it would. My wizard took spells like Speak with Dead. I think she took Scrying, and they ended up not working. I couldn't use, like, message in the house to send my messages to my party members because the house would intercept them and corrupt them. Completely above board, I would have done the exact same thing. No contact with the outside. So the problem here is that it's a house, and houses have, like, doors and windows and chimneys and things. And we kept asking, like, we look out the window, what do we see? And she just said, it's just dark. And that's it. That's all we ever got. It's just dark. Like, we know that it's dark, but also, like, looking out of a window is the rational thing to do when presented with a window. I'm very curious to see what it says about windows, because we couldn't see into the house from the outside either. The house impersonates whomever the PC was attending. Okay, this is what happened with my message spell. The house was taking control of my message spell and corrupting it and giving it back. No easy exit. I'm just scanning the page for like, how does it say to describe the windows? I just don't know. Sleeping in the house is dangerous. We did that a million times. Okay, so this is just saying if you damage the house, it will regenerate if you come back in. So we can't actually break anything to the point where it's unplayable. Just like a video game. Okay, so here's our X card page. This is saying, like, If you have players that can't handle body horror, mental illness, deception, gaslighting, etc. I'm always of two minds about pages like this. Like, on one side, I understand the point of them because obviously you don't want players who are going to be triggered by these things to run into them in a game session. On the other hand, we're playing a game called The Darkest House. And what I always say is, like, if I'm running a game and I trigger one of these things for a player and I didn't know that was going to happen, like, I don't have a good response except to shut the game down. Like, as just for my own mental health, like, I can't proceed running a game knowing that I've hurt somebody. So these kind of pages, like, they're a double-edged sword. Like, they're necessary. We all have to internalize this as people who run games. On the flip side, like, this is definitely a situation where, what do they actually say to do? Let's read that. They say to read the PDF. There are many troubling things overtly depicted or strongly suggested. So basically, does it actually say to go down this checklist with the players? Do your research and use any safety tools that are appropriate for your group. Again, that's a great sentiment, and I'm glad they published it here in white ink because it's such good advice. But at the same time, I need some guidance here about, like, how do I do it with this game? Like, am I supposed to sit down with my players and say, okay, guys, we're playing The Darkest House. You're going to see scary bugs and spiders. You're going to see captivity, possible animal endangerment, etc. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the game is kind of foisting the safety and consent stuff off out of the book onto do your own research. And of course, there's another problem with do your own research. Like, in today's climate, that itself is problematic. Hey, ChatGPT, how do I do that? Oh, just, I'm not even going to get into that. We're not even going to get into that right now. We're not even going to have that discussion right now. Let's make sure my book stays centered. All right. More story than mechanics. Obviously, I always like a much crunchier game. I'm very happy to play in more story-based games, and The Darkest House is very, very much a more story-driven game, boiled down to very, very simple mechanics. I think that's great. It's not my favorite type of game, but then I wasn't the one running it, so this all worked fine for us, I think. We did spend a lot of time just in the exploration mode, going through each house. We were very, very meticulous. We investigated lots of things. We got great descriptions of the rooms. We spent a lot of time, because she had all this artwork in a PowerPoint for us to look at. So we spent a lot of time just poring over the artwork, seeing what's important, what's not. So yeah, very storytelling focused game, which worked well for us. Be upfront with what kind of scenario this is and what kind of mood we're trying to establish. Players making lots of jokes and making light of the events is part of almost every RPG session. Yes. Well, it's part of the fun of the game. If the jokes go too far or come too often, they're going to detract rather than add to the session. I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. If some players are trying to adopt the proper mood and one or two aren't, it can be as bad. Yeah, that's definitely true. This didn't happen for us. We're usually all on the same page about stuff. We're a very casual role-playing group. We're a very beer and pretzels kind of situation. At any given time, we have one or two players aren't even physically in the room because they're off chasing their children or whatnot. While getting everyone to fill out the consent checklist. Oh, there's to fill out the consent checklist. So they do want me to print this out and give it to players. I don't remember getting that checklist. I wouldn't have checked anything on it, obviously. I love horror. Should I have said that at the outset, that I love horror as a genre? I love slasher movies. There's a new Final Destination movie this year. I haven't seen it yet. But, okay, so this is players struggling to get into the spirit of the house. There's kind of not a lot you can do about this. Make it crystal clear that you're not doing these things to the players. Wow, I should hope so. What do we have here? Gory violence, death, but we're not going to do it to you. We're only going to do it to your characters. Players resisting the character building parts of the scenario. That seems strange. Players or characters. Nervous about exploring. Players feeling frustrated. I have a vested interest in reading through this part. You have to be really good at reading your players. When you want the character to be terrified or exasperated being trapped in the house, you don't want players to be having a similar experience. I would want players to be. A little player frustration, while not necessarily desirable, can't always be avoided. I actually think player frustration is good in very small doses. I have a couple players at my flump table who, to get the most out of them as players, I do have to frustrate them a little bit first, right? You push them a little bit to where they start to get a little red in the cheeks, and then they give you magic in return. Let's see. The real goal here is to make the characters quite unhappy while the players are having a great time. So the reason I said I had a vested interest in this is because I think of all the players at the table, I was the one who was the most frustrated with how the game worked in a bunch of different ways. And yeah, I just don't see any great advice here. If a player seems quite frustrated, try to subtly insert something that you know will interest them. The problem is players feeling frustrated. Cook is writing this, and he's assuming that I'm frustrated because the game isn't what I want it to be, when in reality I was frustrated with, like, the mechanics. And obviously he's not going to write a paragraph of, like, here's what happens if one of your players is frustrated with my rules that I wrote and I'm very proud of. Players disliking the conversion, we were all fine with this. I think we all enjoyed our characters quite a lot. And we all enjoyed each other's characters quite a lot. Our group actually has a pretty good track record of having a group of characters that we like each other's characters. I've been in gaming groups where that's not the case. We don't have that problem, thankfully. The house can be difficult and deadly. I do believe there were times that the house was very difficult. There's one situation I do want to get into when we get to that part of the book that was the most frustrating and the most difficult part of the book. Where we had a powwow about it after the session and just kind of came to the solution of, like, or came to the resolution of, like, it was just a bad encounter. We'll get there. All right. Horror gaming tips and techniques. I mean, there's not this page didn't apply to us simply because we're such a casual group. Like, we're not going to put on the mood and stuff. She did have music, and she did have creepy artwork, and she did what she could, but, like, we have to be present in our player bodies and our player minds. Because half of our gaming group has kids, and the kids are in the house. The house acts. There are many actions the house can take. Okay. Oh, see, so she's got a Post-it note here that says, print out a sheet, pick out some music. Let's see. Creaking sounds. Yeah, she gave us sounds. A wounded inhabitant of the house is fully healed. That's something players wouldn't be able to see. A cold draft blows. Whispering can be heard. I'll put your Post-it back. I just need to read underneath it. Every character fails their next action. I don't think she ever did that to us. Oof. I don't think she ever just said, "Oh, you guys fail, herp derp," and I'm glad she didn't, because we would not have been happy. Icy fingers, a translucent image appears. Some of this stuff happened to us. So this is the stuff that, like, so the GM has to earn their little currency they spend when the house die is relevant, and then they spend that currency to make one of these things happen. But yeah, these things just don't matter that much. A couple of these things did happen to us over the course of the game, but, like, yeah, we had, like, some cursed objects. We had a ghost inhabit somebody's body at one point. A lot of these just didn't work in practice, and we didn't find them threatening, and we weren't really scared they were going to happen by the end. Interest is into the house. I'd really love to see something about the windows. I'm seeing the artwork of a lot of these rooms, and I'm like, oh, I remember that room. Yeah, we spent a minute in this room. We sure did. Let's see. Escaping the house. I'm not going to read a lot of these, because, again, I don't want to give the solutions. Since the darkest... Okay, so escaping, but you're not home. This actually... Okay, so we got a point where we found one of the escapes for that to the house. One of the, like, canonical, like, the game could end here and you can leave. But obviously she didn't want the game to end, so instead of, like, stepping back out into Waterdeep or wherever we were, we stepped into, like, 18th century London. And, like, half of the group was like, we should just, like, leave and go play a game in 18th century London. Obviously, we didn't do that because she was running the darkest house. That would have been very rude of us. But the conversation was had, and we were very enamored by the idea of, like, D&D characters running around in, like, Jack the Ripper era. Ooh, there's the map. So, she gave most of us little jobs to do over the... So, like, one of our players was the keeper of, like, all the journal pages. One of our players was, like, the keeper of the keys. My job was to, like, draw out the map of where we were. So this is sections of that. So we're going to skip quite a lot of this. Not all of it, but some of it. Name, introductory material, QR code, and URL. What? We'll take you to a webpage dedicated to this room. Oh, okay, so it's just you got a way to access the digital assets if you need them. She made them all into a PowerPoint, but if she hadn't have done that, she would have had this information if she needed it. Okay. So we're just going to kind of go back through some of these rooms. Oh, she renamed this room with a Post-it note. She renamed whatever this room is the blue rug room. Yeah, we took a lot of, like, rests in that room. This became a safe haven for us. We got back to there through a couple of paths and were able to rest. So, yeah, okay, journal pages. This is another thing that I really don't think works. And I think there's two reasons I don't think it works. Because what would happen is we would, like, be in a room, we'd investigate it, we'd find a journal page, and then she would hand us a journal page, a full page of text like you're seeing here. Handwritten, full page text. Reason number one why this is a bad idea is we have 5 players. We can't all read this. One player could read it out loud, but it's hard for people to, like, internalize what's actually happening. And there are clues in these journals that we have to, like, know about. In a video game, we would, like, collect these and they would go into our menu, and later we would sit down at the menu. But whenever she handed a journal, like, she can't stop the game so 5 individual people can each read this full page of text. You're stopping the game for 10, 12 minutes at a stretch every time we discover one of these. No, you're not going to do that. And the other thing, we like, you can't just re-up on the journal pages. You can't just browse through them during the game because you're supposed to... I never wanted to do that because I wanted to pay attention to what was happening in the rooms and with the other characters. So we had one party member whose job it was to be, like, the journal keeper. And he had all the journal pages, and he did spend a lot of time going back and reading through them. Whenever he also has very good recall for that kind of thing. I have terrible recall for documents like this in any kind of game, in any kind of tabletop game, in video games, just in life in general. I would read this journal page, and 5 minutes later, I would not be able to tell you what it said, is my problem. And I even brought this up in a very early session. I'm like, if we're going to be relying on these journal pages, I'm just telling you right now, like, from week to week to week, especially if we end up skipping week for whatever reason, there's going to 0% chance I'm going to be able to remember what's in these journal pages. And you don't have a good answer for that, right? Like, what's she going to say? Oh, you know, just read them all again every single session. Like, no, obviously not. The other reason these don't really work for this game specifically is because getting these journal pages kind of leads you to believe there is a coherent narrative that you're going to discover when really you're just trying to solve the puzzle on how to escape the house. There was a lot of red herrings for we thought we were unraveling something when really there was nothing to unravel. And it just was not a very satisfying resolution to finding all these journal pages. Just the story, just to give a very brief outline, is there's an evil house and there's, like, an evil family, and the evil family lives in the evil house, and you find the journal pages of one of the family members, and he's, like, losing his mind and, like, hallucinating. So the the house is like projecting his family members out, and they're evil, and you have to fight them over and over and over again. That's just kind of the base of it. Some of the books in this library include H.P. Lovecraft's Tale of Horror. Okay, oh, there's Dune in there. We could have read Dune, really? This is another thing. There's lots of stuff like this where the book where she would present us with a lot of information, and she would have no choice but to just literally read it out, because that's the only medium that a game master really has when running a game. And like 5 sessions later, we were supposed to remember that she said this thing in this list. It just wasn't presented in a great way a lot of time. That's just a fault with the book. I have like a whole rant about presenting clues to players in tabletop games. Like, you would think conceptually like you can present clues to puzzles and players will like figure out the clues and solve the puzzles, but in tabletop RPGs that almost never works out for a whole variety of reasons that are way outside the scope of this game. So it's kind of the idea of presenting a tabletop game as an escape room has a weird hole in the center of it. I'm just kind of glancing at each of this room to make sure that I understand which room is which. Yeah, I remember all of these places pretty much. We did the full Monty. We went through the whole house and did all. We wanted to see every single room. Remember that courtyard? I remember this guy. Yeah, I know him. With the with the nipples that he's got. Mm-hmm. The art gallery, yeah, we were in there for a minute. We stared at all of these paintings for minutes and minutes on end. We stared at all of them trying to determine, is there something in that painting? Is there something we didn't see? And then there were rooms like this that weren't really rooms. They were just kind of metaphysical spaces. And I don't know how I feel about these. Like, I get that the house is a boundless space that like twists through multi-dimensional layering, and I get that there's going to be parts of the house that aren't strictly speaking a house. But for example, this room is like a battlefield that you find, like strewn with bones and rusted weapons and things. And if I find that in a haunted house, if I step through a door and find myself on a battlefield, intuitively, I need that battlefield to like mean something, right? I want to know who fought in this battle, why it's connected to this house. Play up the ominous mystery of this figure that won't even turn towards the PCs when he speaks. But there's a gameplay reason that this room is important. There's a clue to discover here that would lead you to bring, like, it's a key and lock. Like, if this battlefield is the lock, and if you bring the proper key here, something happens. But there's not a narrative reason for this battlefield to be here. It's just spooky and creepy and mysterious for the sake of being spooky and creepy and mysterious. And as I said, it's just not satisfying to present a reader with that kind of material inside of a work where there legitimately is a mystery that they're trying to uncover. Red herrings aren't fun. Loved this guy and his little furry friends, his little Five Nights at Freddy's guys here. I've never played that game. The back rooms. Okay. The back rooms. We found the back rooms. And it's this, remember, I'm the map maker in the group. I'm drawing a map. And I was doing a pretty good job, if I say so myself. Anytime somebody was like a little bit confused about how the house was laid out, or where did this door go, what did we see, I was able to grab my map and say, we saw this door and this door and this door, and this is where we've been, and this is where we haven't been, and if we go here, we'll find 3 more doors that we haven't been through yet. Here's our list of things left to explore. And then the GM would go, yup, that's right. So I was doing a pretty good job, and we got to the back rooms. Boo, back rooms. So the back rooms are like these just kind of empty, creepy, yellow kind of hotel, like empty hotel lobby kind of vibe that just went on and on and on. Repetition and getting lost. For the most part, there's nothing in the back rooms. Yup. Not a damn thing. We kept finding stuff. Let's see. Does it give a list of the stuff we found here? I think at one point... a working TV with a single tape of Poltergeist in it. Yeah, like 3 rubber tires. We found all this stuff. I think at one point we found like a half-eaten carton of General Tso's chicken. Like, we found all this stuff. We're pushing it all in a shopping cart that we found. I notated all of it. I have half of my page now is dead. I've got like the darkest house mapped out, and I was doing a good job. And now half of it is dedicated to room after room after room after room after room in the back rooms. And I think I had a meltdown. I think I had a meltdown and yelled at everybody and woke up in the hospital. No, but we got to the end of the game when we finally left the back rooms. I think I like asked, like, what was the point of any of that? We spent, I want to say, close to 2 full sessions just going through these back rooms. We go through a door, we enter a room, we make an investigation check, we find one of these things, and yeah, it's just the repetition and getting the mind-numbing repetition and almost supernatural distastefulness of the back rooms can affect one's mind. Yeah, it affected mine. I'm not ashamed to say. I just don't know why this is in the game. You don't discover anything down there that really matters. It's not part of the mystery. I think she said that she was encouraged, like, if players didn't find a clue in the correct space in the house, you can, like, drop it in the back rooms. The problem with that, though, is we're finding, like, Poltergeist tapes and General Tso's chicken and every other friggin' thing in the back rooms. How could we tell if anything we found was useful or not? I don't know. This was a big miss for me. This whole concept of having an entire section of the house that is on purpose, repetitive, and mind-numbing. And listen, here's how I know in my heart of hearts that Monty Cook is better than this. In 2nd edition D&D, in the Planescape setting, there's all these different planes and worlds you can go to. And there's a world you can go to called Pandemonium. And Pandemonium drives you insane. And it gives you a list in the game, like, this is, if a person reaches stage 1 of Pandemonium madness, this is what happens. Stage 2, stage 3, etc. One of the stages is like just despair. Just shut it down, push it out. And it's when your mind goes numb and you just can't anymore. And there's a blurb in the book describing Pandemonium that says, don't let players linger in this state of mind too long. Narrate it, then move on. This is not, like, this is here for flavor, it's here for lore, it's here to build the setting properly. We don't actually want players to be in that state of mind. So Monty Cook either wrote that or read it, because it was in a game that he helped design, and then he put Pandemonium into the darkest house. And we went through every friggin' corner. We went through it with a toothbrush. We scrubbed the baseboards. Anyway, moving on. Most of the rooms were great. Oh, okay, she's got an actual character name here. Let's see if we'll find mine. See if I find... I'm going to be on the lookout for that. Post-its for specific players, because I would be interested to see what she had written for me. Ooh, the kitchen. Yeah, this was creepy. I think this was the first room we found that was kind of this kind of like a 1950s, like, faux Americana. It was very creepy finding the kitchen. The dining room. This ghost was another character. We did every single thing we could possibly think of to interact with this ghost. And then the thing is just that you can't interact with the ghost. It's just there to be creepy. We could, like, we want to find out how they died. We want to find out if there's, like, unfinished business. All the things you would want to do with a ghost in a haunted house story. But you can't do any of those things with this ghost. This was cool. The painting where like had the eyes scrubbed out. Every time you see one of these symbols here is like sound effects. Oh my god, this ringing telephone. She didn't describe the ringing of the telephone. She just put put the image up on the screen and let the PowerPoint ring for us. And it just which is exactly how you would experience just a creepy ringing telephone in the background, right? That was masterfully done, because at one point you're like, a GM could just say, you enter the creepy room, there's a creepy painting, and every so often a telephone rings in the background, and you would go, heebie and jeebie. But this was way worse, because she gave us the room, she kind of gave us the description of it, she showed us the picture, and then while we're discussing how we want to go about to investigate it, this telephone just that did it for me. That's good horror. Good horror. Okay, yeah, we went up into the attic. I think we fought the flowers in the greenhouse twice, I think. So that's one thing that our GM did with her house die, that she was, whenever the house does something bad to you, the only thing she could do that would really impact our investigation, that we really thought was threatening, was spawn in like one of the boss monsters in the house. And the first time we encountered each boss monster, it was a big deal. We had to like learn the mechanics of the fight. We had to like learn what we could do to mess with them, what the strategy was for either getting away cleanly or doing enough damage to chase them off. Because you can't really kill any of these monsters, right? They're projections of the house. But the second time you encounter the boss monster, it's not as impactful. And then by the third time you encounter it, we're just cracking jokes. Oh, here she is again. Oh, okay, here we... And that's not really fair to the GM, because the book tells you to do that, to threaten your players. It's not like D&D where you can just have random orcs show up, right? It's... but at the same time, it's like also not fair to the setting, because you're like de-spookifying these monsters the third time you encounter them. I guess the way to try to get around that would be having some kind of rule set for like escalating an encounter each time, right? Like the first time you encounter Jason, he comes at you with his fists. You chase him off, and the second time you encounter him, he comes back with a hatchet, and the third time he comes at you with a chainsaw, right? That's not an experience we got, but... let's see. Oh, this checkerboard room. We enjoyed that. Yeah, we got attacked by zombies. Yeah, I remember this tree. Mm-hmm. Had some good time with the tree. The Raven guy. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing a lot of his artwork printed again, and like, yeah, I've seen the same zombie guy like 9 times, I think. Maybe we didn't have the a full art budget for this game or something. Yeah, there he is again. Got to rescue the dog, people. Okay, so yeah, the dog is part of the game. Buddy is here to tug at heartstrings. Most people could handle a fictional person in danger, but not a dog. They're going to want to protect the dog. The thing is, I thought the dog was immortal. I didn't think the dog could actually take damage or anything. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, it's right here. Finding Buddy automatically heals the character of their current Lotus rating mental wound. So yeah, she just adapted that when she put her own dog into the game. Good times. Creepy baby. You always want to have a creepy baby in your... There he is again. Oh, there's Creepy Baby. There he is. Oh, there's the flowers that we fought like 2 or 3 times in the walled garden. So this is one of those situations where like, yeah, look at this picture here. You're in an outdoors walled garden. So are we out of the house? Well, no. Well, then what is the sky like? Well, it's just sky. You can't actually go over the wall. From within the garden, the wall is impossible to climb. Or rather, it's just easy to climb as it was, but the climber always ends up back in the garden. This is true even if a character jumps, flies, or magically moves through the wall. This is a very easy thing to print. It's a very easy thing to write. It's a very hard thing to convey in a satisfying way in the game. Because in a tabletop role-playing game, when the players are presented with a challenge, the first thing they're going to want to do is try to overcome the challenge. And when their first idea doesn't work, they're going to move on to another idea, and then another idea, and then another idea. And that's the problem with a wall like this, where there is no... Like, obviously, we can't get over the wall. Obviously, it would be exiting the house. But our characters in this situation would realistically want to exhaust all opportunities. Like, yeah, we as players know there's no way we can get over this wall, but we have 12 things that our characters would definitely, absolutely try. We tried climbing it. I think I cast a fly spell at this point, and just narratively, there's no satisfying way to just say, poof, you're back in the garden. Poof, you're back in the garden. I don't really have a good solution to this problem. I don't know that there is one. There's lots of D&D dungeons that have the same problem. The walls are all magically undiggable, and you cannot go through them, even using ethereal... Like, yeah, because you don't want players just, like, walking out of the dungeon at any point. I get it. It's a hard problem to solve. And I think the only thing I would do is I would just tell my player, like, hey, guys, let's just right now establish you've entered this garden. You guys spend how many minutes attempting to leave the garden? And they'll say, oh, we'll spend 10, 15 minutes. Great. You do that. Nothing works. What's next? That's the only way I could think to get around it. The doll room. Because there's a creepy doll who has a ruined eye. The cat room. Oh, one of us got eaten by a cat. Yep. One of us got eaten by a cat and horked up as a hairball. And it was funny. We had tea. I think we fought this woman like 13 times. We fought her over and over and over. I blasted her with so many magic missiles, just kind of became our reflex at a time. Lots of bedrooms. Okay. Yeah, the ballroom. So this is an NPC that you can interact with. And the problem with NPCs in the Darkest House is that they are all useless. Obviously, there's some NPCs you're supposed to fight. Like, there's the house projections of this evil family. But, like, this barman is, like... There's not really anything useful the barman can tell us. And yeah, it just kind of says he kind of tries to always bring the conversation back around to talking to him. So we will drink. And then, obviously, as soon as he's like, hey, would you like a drink? The obvious answer is no, because we're in a haunted house, which is exactly what happened to us until our one player who's like, I eat Doom for breakfast, is like, yes, sure, I'll have a drink. Make me a screwdriver there, Jeeves, or wherever that guy sounds like. I don't know. But yeah, dealing with the NPCs was tricky because the NPCs are localized to particular rooms, and they don't have, like, character arcs or story arcs that they go through, and they can't because so much of the game is just mysterious for the sake of being mysterious. So, like, I appreciate that we have this barman character and a couple other characters who I did like, but for the most part, they were either there to attack the players or they were there to allow... How do I want to word this? Like, turning in a fetch quest, right? We found the thing that the character wants, we can go there and turn it in, and then in exchange we would get whatever information, or we would get a lock to open or something. But it was difficult to think of any of these characters as anything other than just projections of the house, because I think that's exactly what they were. We didn't run into any other people who were, like, trapped in here, which might have been very interesting. We didn't run into any other people who were investigating. We didn't have any allies. It was mostly just us doing all the work. I want a magic missile her right now. Like, sitting here right now, I want to blast her. Yeah, and then there's rooms like this where, like, suddenly we're on the deck of a weird starship. And this was another room that had an NPC where, like, no matter what we did to interact, there wasn't much we could do. There wasn't much we could do unless we said exactly the right thing or had exactly the right item, which would make the NPC do something. Which is how things react when you're in an escape room, to be fair, which is what this is kind of emulating. But as a role-playing encounter, some of those didn't always work. Here's another list of books that are here. There's a blue corridor, another bedroom. So there is actually a storm raging outside. And if you see the thing out there in the storm 6 times, it attacks you. Did that happen to us? Did we see the thing in the storm? I don't actually know. I can't actually remember now. This guy, so this guy is like a ghost, and we talked to him for a while, and then he possessed one of our characters' heads. So like he wasn't able to control them, but he was like riding around inside of her skull. And eventually we got out of the house and dumped him off in somebody else's head. And then every session we came back and we learned what he was up to in this old lady's head. Like at first she was this decrepit old widow and she was very sad. And then every subsequent session our GM was like, oh, by the way, now she's like, here she is at the club. And like, here she is surfing. Became like a meme and we enjoyed it. I think this is the last room we went through. Just when we got to a point where we'd explored every place in the house, but we hadn't yet explored all the doors in the house because there's multiple entrances to most of the rooms. So we got to a point where we thought we'd explored everywhere and we're just checking off our last sequence of doors. And we came into this room and she described it as like this weird like spiral like Escher nightmare path, and we're like, nope, leaving. And then many sessions later we found the entrance from the other direction. So I think that was the last room we actually did something in our game. Yeah, I remember the vestibule. There was some fun to be had there. The time loop room. Okay, here we go. I have to. So here's the deal. We go in this room. There's 4 doors. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 entrances into this room. There's no exits. Every time you exit a room, you re-enter it from a different direction. Let's see. I'm just doing a quick skim of this. So yeah, it's literally a time loop. You remember your companions doing and saying the same things they just said once before. Maybe twice, maybe more. We're stuck in a time loop. And yeah, she did convey the idea that one by one we kind of came to the realization that we're in a time loop. There's a clock. Leaving the room resets the loop. Tell the players they are entering the room as if for the first time. If even one person tries to leave, the loop resets for everyone. We spent, oh my God, well over an hour in this room. We were stripping baseboards. We were scrabbling up floor tiles. We dismantled this clock. We just think of 5 level 5 D&D characters and what they're capable of unloading into a room. We did it to this room. Nothing worked. Nothing even got feedback. We never even got close. Like there was no sense whatsoever that the only response we ever got over and over and over and over was, you remember doing this before. You remember doing this before. And here's why. This isn't a trapper mechanism. There's no way to disarm it. There's no trick. The only way to get out of the time loop is to call upon the house. Here's what happened to us is my GM is an evil little gremlin woman, and she had this tendency early in the game to, if you rolled and you didn't succeed, or if it was an important roll, she would like look at you and sneer and say, "You can always call on the house." And she would say it in that voice, and she would bat her eyes, and sometimes she did little jazz hands. And obviously you're never going to call in the house. Like, obviously not. And that's what she did in this room over and over and over. You remember doing this before, but you can always call on the house. And yeah, that's just the solution. Everybody has to call on the house to leave. There's no clue in here that that's what you have to do. And my theory is this room only exists because in play testing they found that players did not want to call on the house. Tabletop role-playing games are designed where players in a party will do the actions that their character is good at in the party. Hey, we're going to meet an NPC. Who's got the highest charisma? Hey, this box is locked. Who's our rogue with the... So when players fall into that mindset, which every adventuring party inevitably does, you pass way, way more skill checks than you fail. It's how the games are designed. And so when you have this mechanic where you have to call on this evil supernatural entity to give you a little boost, it just doesn't come into play that often. And we were not in the practice of calling upon the house. It's not something we did ever. I don't think we ever called upon the house. So the other element in play here is that our D&D group is also like our escape room group. We've done dozens of escape rooms together, and we would rather die inside of an escape room than take a hint. One of the guys in our escape room group, if he even thinks that the people running the escape room are like trying to feed us a hint, he will be pissed. I've seen him yell at speakers. I've seen him like turns bright red, little vein on his head. So we were in this room, and me and him are looking at each other, and we're like, we're not calling on the house. We will never call on the house. We will die of old age in this house that we're playing the darkest house in before we call on the house. And yeah, eventually she just, at the end of the session, she's just like, that's the solution. Everybody has to do it. So this room was definitely the low point of the game for me. Oof. She ran it perfectly. She ran it exactly the way it's published. It's... yeah. And then there's fake clues. Did she give us these fake clues? Maybe she did. Yeah, it's saying to send fake clues. A voice filled with sincerity and affection says, there's a pattern in the rug. Look at the rug. There's no pattern in the rug. That's just a lie. There is a pattern in the rug, but it's got nothing to do with anything other than an interesting design. Why would you publish that, Monty Cook, in your book about a haunted house? Why would you put... Anyway, many of these other rooms were fantastic, and I don't want to spoil them in this video. There's a summoning chamber. We didn't do the summoning because it's obviously an evil thing to do, but that is something you can do if you want, I guess. The red rum. Very good, very good. The original house. Okay. I recall this map. Yeah. And yeah, then we're into the appendices here. So these are, you can see how many different like journals and clues and things we find. And I just don't think this is a very good vehicle for delivering clues in a tabletop role-playing game. My theory is that Monty Cook is at a point in his career where he's trying a lot of different experiments, and not every experiment is going to work perfectly. So while I enjoyed playing through this game, I do think there are more misses than hits in the design philosophy that went into it. And yeah, that's the end of the book. The house hates you. Mm-hmm. We know. Recommended media. Yeah, this is what I was wanting to check. Do they recommend we read House of Leaves? Yep, sure does. The Shining by Stephen King. See, that would be an excellent setting for like a haunted house game. That sounds great to me. Oh wait, this is printed in 2022. This didn't come out during lockdown. Oh, and then it was originally published. Maybe it was originally published as an app in 2020. Maybe that's the deal. And then it came out in this book in 2022. Well, that is The Darkest House. I think this is a great example of, like I said, a kind of an experiment. I mean, it didn't work for me. That's not to say it won't work for everybody, obviously. And I think our GM was a saint putting up with my frustrated meltdowns at points in this game. But yeah, I'm glad to have looked through this book, and I see so many things that I would do differently in designing a game like this. I guess I will go on my clue rant just a little bit. Like, in order to get players at a tabletop role-playing game to feel like they've solved a mystery, you kind of just have to tell them the solution. I'm trying to think of a example from The Darkest House that we ran into. There was a thing where she said towards the end of the game, after we had solved it and gotten out, we were kind of doing our debriefing, and she said, yeah, I said this thing over and over and over, and I can't believe nobody... What was like an item we found or something. It was a blueprint. We found a blueprint, and she's like, I can't believe nobody read that blueprint ever. She's like, I kept mentioning, I kept like figuring out who had it and who was carrying it, but I couldn't believe nobody. And the players all like we thought we did. One of us was like, I didn't think we could read it. I thought it was just like an item we were carrying in like our inventory. And I had thought that we did read it. Like, I was really under the impression of like we knew because we had an idea of what was on it, and I thought that the reason we had an idea what was on it was because we had sat down and read it. Apparently that never happened. So that's just a disconnect in communication. That's just disconnect in information that the DM thinks I've presented this information, but the players don't think that they've received it. And that's why clues are very, very hard to do in a tabletop role-playing game. So the DM just kind of has to say sometimes, like, this is the solution. And then players will be like, oh, we solved the thing. Because in their mind, they implemented the solution. There needed to be more of that in this game and less of, well, we're going to trust the players to piece together all this disparate information so they can carve this path to one of the possible exits of the house to get a satisfying exit. And the other thing that would need to happen is just reduce the red herrings. There were so many. And then I don't know a good way to implement a mechanic to the effect of call upon the evil house to help you, but then I get a point that I can cash in later to screw with you more. I don't know how to make that kind of mechanic effective because I don't think I've ever seen a game where it is very effective. So this is a great experimental game, and I'm glad that it's out there. And if you like horror games and you want to play one, you could do worse than to play The Darkest House. And I know that our GM wants to run it again with different people, and she has a brain full of ideas on how to do it better that time. And that's something that I can absolutely empathize with. Anyway, it is now almost 9 o'clock, so I've been ranting about this game for close to 2 hours. And it's now time for me to go. Farewell. Sleep well. Where's my mouse? Oh, it's over here. Oh my god, my